Thank you for joining Let's Meet Where We Eat, conversations with innovation and entrepreneurship leaders who specialize in food and nutrition. Our series is presented by Nourish Cafe and the Food and Nutrition Innovation Institute at the Tufts Friedman School for Nutrition Science and Policy. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, to another meeting of Nourish Cafe at the Friedman School here at Tufts University. We're so excited today to be joined by Lauren Abda, who's the founder and genius behind Branchfoods here in Boston, and also a Friedman alum. So Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be back.
Wonderful. I know, virtually back, right? Someday we'll truly be back in the same place on the same campus. You know, Oprah Winfrey has this cool seamless background now where it looks like you're in the same room together interviewing. We need to figure that technology out somehow so we can do this better. So today I want to go on a short exploration of what you're doing at Branchfoods, but for our students, current and future, how you got there. You're a Friedman student and now you're in this great space of food tech and venture and startups, which is so exciting. So why don't you first start by telling us a little bit about, introduce yourself by describing a little bit about Branchfoods and what it is right now.
Sure. Well, I guess I can talk about kind of how things unfolded to allow me to start Branchfood, but as an introduction,
we'll go back there. Yeah,
sounds good.
Let's start with like your current Branchfoods and what it is.
Great. So at Branchfood, we provide resources for food entrepreneurs. We're based in Boston, but we have a global reach, and we really seek to provide resources for people that are launching new businesses across the food supply chain to improve the food industry, to make it more sustainable, environmentally friendly, and contributing to better health outcomes. We do this in a couple of ways, and I will say I've been running Branchfood now for 6 years, and so our program and our offerings have, been evolving over the course of that time. But to date, we have a shared workspace in downtown Boston for businesses to work from. It's at 50 Milk Street. We do numerous events over the course of the year, now primarily virtual, that seek to educate and bring together people in the industry to share best practices, resources, knowledge, expertise in support of new ventures and business development. We also have an annual conference that we launched 4 years ago now called Food Edge, which
it's awesome.
We hope you all can make it. It'll be this beginning of May 2022, which really seeks to bring together the community of entrepreneurs, industry experts, corporate companies that are working at the forefront of food to highlight what they're doing and kind of raise awareness about that. And then additionally, also about 4 years ago, started Branch Venture Group, which provides capital to emerging food-related businesses, and it's mostly angel investment capital. It's pretty early stage funding to be able to support new businesses coming to market. So it's a little bit about Branchfood, Food Edge, Branch Venture Group, what has been evolving over the last 6 years here as I've been based in the Boston area. And I think in so many ways has been only made possible given the tailwinds in the food industry as it's continuing to change and evolve, and I think really meet the demands of consumers in terms of trends, but also the pressure that they're putting on the food industry to be better. In so many ways, I think that that's ushering a lot of opportunity for new business creation and entrepreneurship, especially.
So I have to say that when I think about when you're describing what you're doing with Food Edge and having all these portfolio startups, and then you started a venture fund, like I get sweaty and nervous thinking about that. Like that's bold. Like that is, it feels so bold and so courageous and so huge. And so I'm always in awe of what you've done. I actually had the privilege of getting to meet Lauren. It's probably 6 years ago when you were just starting and I had a different role in Boston. And I was like, look at this amazing thing they're starting. And so it's really incredible. What I think I want to now connect back to for our students is, okay, you're in this really exciting, really bold and courageous space. Take us to the Lauren who was enrolling at Friedman. Who was Lauren right as she was enrolling in Friedman and starting that program? What was your background? What was your career like? And what was your decision to enroll at Friedman for grad school?
Yeah, well, so we're going back in time to 2009, actually. So that's when I graduated college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after I graduated. It was a tough time in the economy to be getting a job. I, had focused my undergraduate degree on nutrition and food science, was really active in student government, was based in Burlington. I went to the University of Vermont for undergrad, and really loved all the work that I was doing that became more private sector focused, I think, over my time at Friedman. I ended my time there actually studying abroad, but prior to that, I worked for Ben and Jerry's in their quality control lab. So that was like the coolest job I think I'll ever
Best
have.
job ever.
It's funny in their, as an aside, in their location in South Burlington, they have an adult size slide right in the middle of the offices.
I've been there. It's
they have all of
amazing.
these containers all around the office where you can take defective ice cream, which is really just ice cream that doesn't have that like kind of uniform ingredient spread. And so I was, I would take home ice cream to my dorm all the time. And I think I was the most popular person that lived in that building because of it. But anyway, so I graduated. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. Ended up applying to some grad schools and not very many. I think I loved Friedman. I went and visited, I think my junior year of college. I was thinking about, moving into policy, despite the fact that I had more private sector experience. I liked the idea of working in DC and thinking about nutrition guidelines and, kind of the FDA, the USDA, and all of those regulations that I felt like could be improved to, address food insecurity and access and all of those challenges that I think I became really aware of over the course of my time when I was in undergrad.
Yeah.
And so ended up at Friedman in 2010. I was food policy and applied nutrition. At the time it was FPAN, though I think that acronym has been updated. And, really just tried to use it as a time where I could explore, obviously, the kind of public sector policy route, but also I think had these underlying interests in entrepreneurship, not even innovation. Like I don't think at the time that was really a conversation that was happening in a big way yet. It was primarily
really
kind of new business. And so, went to Friedman, ended up doing a lot of my own kind of directed study work. I took some classes at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. I had Will Masters was my kind of advisor through the 2 years, and I'm so grateful.
I know there's a lot of Will Masters fans on this meeting today.
He's awesome. We've kept in touch as well, which has been pretty cool to just kind of share how we've been evolving and talk about how Friedman's been evolving as well. But he was really supportive of my alternative interests, I'll call them, at the time at Friedman, which had to do with more kind of private sector, new business development. And so through a directed study program, I actually took a couple of classes at Harvard, at MIT, which gave me a little bit more exposure to entrepreneurship and business development. I think some of those classes have been, launched now at Friedman, thanks to the Institute and the new focus, which is awesome. I wish I had those classes when I was there. I wouldn't have had to go outside the school to get them. But it was really just an exploratory time for me, and felt committed to, the policy world long-term post-graduation. While I was at Friedman, I also did an internship as required by the program at Techstars, which is a startup accelerator program based in Boston.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was, I guess it was that summer between the two kind of years of the program.
And for people who don't know, explain what Techstars is.
Yeah, so Techstars is a startup accelerator program. So small companies, 1, 2, 3 people, founded businesses apply to the program to get, kind of 4 months long of space, connections, financial support. Techstars at the time was, I think, giving at least $100,000 to teams to be able to work on their new business ideas. They took equity in the companies, they took part ownership of the company. But I was sort of an intern at the time. It was Katie Ray's first managing year. So if some of you are familiar with Katie Ray.
The engine at MIT. And there was Lauren, the student, developing her diabolical plan to take over the food tech entrepreneurship world. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that I think Techstars was really a point in time for me where I was introduced to innovation and entrepreneurship as being a way to drive change. And as I was learning about all of the, difficulties and inconsistencies in food at the time, really felt like that can be, a path forward for me. So that was my first exposure. I ended up doing some work with food startups after that. But after graduation, I actually continued to lean into the policy and regulatory opportunities that were presented. I ended up getting a position at the World Trade Organization. So moved to Geneva, Switzerland, worked for the WTO in their agriculture and commodities division, where they were working to coordinate and finance food safety development initiatives in some of the WTO's member countries. And so I was doing a lot of writing and, kind of best practices, extraction from projects that they had on the ground. It was great. I mean, living in Geneva was amazing.
Sounds amazing.
It was pretty cool. I ate a ton of chocolate. Tried to explore.
You cannot eat a bad meal in Geneva. It's one of my favorite cities in the world to eat in. Yes.
It's phenomenal and unexpectedly so. I mean, just given the diversity, I think, of visitors and, access to France with so much delicious, produce, it really is a special place. But kind of felt like I, really enjoyed the work of, top-down intergovernmental organizations and how they deal with agriculture and trade. And while I think that there could have been a role for me there more long-term, I just kept getting all of these newsletters. Some of you might be subscribed to them from Boston, from Venture Fizz and Bostino. And was just hearing so much about the entrepreneur community here that was really taking off and developing.
Because it was just exploding at that point. I mean, Mass Challenge and everybody was just totally exploding. Yeah.
And this was 2013, so mostly 2012, 2013. So I decided to come back. I got a job at a tech company, thanks to one of the women that I had met at Techstars. I was, kind of helping a little bit with finance, a little bit with office management, a little bit, nothing related to my background and what I was doing, but, just used as an opportunity to pay my bills. And then I started a meetup group in August of 2013. And that was really the precursor to what Branchfood is today.
That is really cool. What a great journey. I just think and I think what it says to me is you didn't jump straight into this. You went and you were in a policy space. Your mind was in the policy space and you went and explored that. And I'm sure a lot of that work you did in Geneva and the understanding of policy has been applicable, because you can't really advise entrepreneurs if you don't have some background and sense of the infrastructure of the industry. Mm-hmm. And could you speak to a minute on how important, you can't just sort of jump into entrepreneurship. You need expertise and a background in something, and that's how the Friedman student experience can feed that. Can you talk about that connection a little bit?
Absolutely. I think it's, one of the things that I think a lot about as it relates to not only Friedman's role from an institution perspective and being kind of a leader in the food industry and, carving out this really critical need of being a source of trusted science, which I think is really important, but also from a just curriculum, topics, the type of exposure that you get to the food system as a whole. I think that it really, illuminates where there are opportunities for innovation and where potentially new business creation could take place, or new policy creation could take place, or just new models for, finding the desirable outcome that you're looking for. And so, as I think about the work that I do now and a lot of the entrepreneurs that we talk to and see through Branchfood, through Branch Venture Group, so many of them have, if it's not the founder of the company, it's a co-founder, or it's, part of that early team that really does have expertise in this space. And I think that that's happening on the new business creation side, but I also think on the funding side, funders of startups and new businesses are becoming just as, well-read and knowledgeable about these different sectors where innovation is taking place. And it's almost, I think, in reaction to entrepreneurs that are coming with, such industry knowledge and trying to identify really what the opportunity is for these businesses for investment, but then ultimately for additional support. And I think that was really the seed for what started Branch Venture Group in the years following. I
love it. And now you've got this front row seat to this super, super exciting field of food and food tech and nutrition. I know everyone cringes when I say nutrivation, but nutrition innovation, I just shrink it to say nutrivation, but I'm just being cheeky. And food system innovation and just all of the things that go with it. And it's a little life sciences, and it's a little food, and it's a little chemistry, it's logistics, it's robotics, it's everything. So give us a little bit of a front row seat, Lauren, into what's hot. Like our students are studying, they're working so hard, they're getting everything done at Friedman. Like on the world on the other side, what is the product space, the startup space, the venture space that is just like insatiable appetite right now that our students should know about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think innovation is happening across the food value chain. And, for us at Branch, we think about it in three main kind of categories. So first is consumer packaged goods, which I think that the most interesting new products coming to market really have either a strong food science foundation or something really unique related to their packaging or their branding or their messaging that they're really coming to their category with. And so, you think about Impossible Burger, Kite Hill, even Oatly. I mean, they all have a very specific food product formulation that they've undergone to be able to be a cleaner label product or be better for you, or be more shelf stable with less ingredients to allow for that. And so CPG, consumer packaged goods, is an area of great interest to us because of, I think, all of the activity that we're seeing in the place across the space. Really, founders with all sorts of backgrounds, right? You look at Mary's Gone Crackers. It's one of my favorite crackers.
Love Mary's Gone Crackers. I always have at least 3 boxes in the house. Yes.
I know when they're on sale, it's like, you got to stock up.
When they're $3 a box, you grab those things. Yes.
Yeah. It was started by a psychologist. Mary herself is the founder. She co-founded it with her husband, but she was a psychologist that was got diagnosed with celiac disease, and created a cracker that she could consume that wouldn't, upset her stomach. And so I think we've just seen founders that have taken these very personal experiences, parents with children that have food allergies, or, a family recipe that they've, started to commercialize and sell, and really create a unique product that I think answers consumers' interests in more authentic food that they trust. And having that kind of face behind the brand, I think, has been
really interesting, Lauren. The role of the citizen science in product development and the relationship to be paired with someone who's like from Friedman, who has the experience of nutrition science.
Huh.
And do you see that being, because I do see this growth in the citizen science product, but I also see the lack of some of the knowledge in those citizen scientists and the need to partner. So is that something that our students should be thinking about?
Yes. In fact, I think I've referred a couple of folks along now to Friedman who, are working with kind of novel ingredients and building them into new products, or they're not particularly novel ingredients, but they're new ingredients for a category. One of the companies that I'd referred along was Atlas Bars, which is doing, kind of not necessarily meal replacements, but snack bars that have ashwagandha in them. And there's a little bit of research around what ashwagandha can do, but based on kind of the pairings and the synergy between the different other ingredients in the bar, there may be some really powerful health benefits there. And so it's been interesting to see, I think people come to market with these really strong health claims, product claims, based on what's in the product. And, the science isn't quite there yet to back a lot of that up. And so it really, I think, becomes a greater issue when, as companies grow and scale, and they're still kind of promoting these things, but that might be a red flag to a potential acquirer who,
right.
When a brand is typically acquired, there's a lot of de-risking that takes place. So, big companies don't want any liability. And so they really try to reduce any exposure that they may have. And so if you're making a claim that ashwagandha is going to, change your life, that's something that they might take away, but how will that affect then consumer interest in the brand and that base that they've built over time? And so I think there can be a lot of issues with it, but that's one of the reasons I'm excited about what Friedman is doing, because I think that the food industry now more than ever needs that, information to be able to trust, and for brands to be able to integrate into their own, kind of marketing, such that we actually know that this product does have that intended health benefit, or it doesn't. So.
Right. Yeah. And so in addition to CPG, what are the two other areas? I know one of them you're going to say. What are the two other areas that are hot?
So one of the other areas is food tech, which, there's a lot of different variations of what food tech means, but for us, it's really come down to supply chain technology. So, different parts of the supply chain that may be happening presently, with pen and paper. So, we were working with a company up in Portland that basically took the process that buyers at the local co-op have to, find and identify farmers with excess produce or just produce to sell at their co-op. It's typically a pen and paper, phone call, fax operation. And it's fine, but you can't gather insights from that. You can't, build on that data. You can't, understand sort of, well, how much do I have today? How much can I order so that I meet kind of the demand that I expect? And so they built software to put that online to, better kind of manage the process. And it's technology like that I think has become really interesting over time to see folks come to market with. In addition, hospitality technology, point of sale systems. Some of you may be familiar with Toast here in Boston. They're a point of sale system for restaurants. Back of house sourcing platform. So, very similar to kind of that company that's working to put buyers and farmer relations online.
And I think, Lauren, just to pause there, I think that's why it's important to put that together, because some people will say, well, Toast doesn't really have anything to do with food nutrition and innovation, and that's a tech platform and it helps restaurants run efficiently, or any of these direct consumer point of sale. But what I always point out is exactly what you just said, which is it's creating efficiencies in our food supply chain that are allowing us to increase margins, bring down costs, increase efficiencies, make things more equitable, which is really critical to how we build a sustainable, healthy, accessible food supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great point. I mean, we know the importance of consuming local food. It's better for us. It's healthier for us. It's grown in the soils that are surrounding us. It's better for the local economy. There's so many benefits. Well, how do we actually do that? How do we consume more food? Well, maybe if we put a system in place that allows us to identify those local farmers, figure out how much, produce they have available, help them predict how much I will order, looking to the future. It sounds incremental, but that's the foundation of helping our food system evolve to a place where, we have more diversity, we have, greater share in the number of people that are helping bring food to market, and ultimately fulfill kind of these big, massive goals that we have for shifting our food system, which will take, decades. It will take decades to get to the point.
This is nothing that can happen at a snap of a fingers, but every little step helps. And then, so I want to make sure we get to the students and their questions. So what's the third area that you think our students should be paying attention to?
So the third area is really ag tech. And we found this to be such an interesting space, especially over COVID and with the conversation.
Define ag tech. How would you define ag tech?
Yeah. So for us, ag tech is inclusive of, sensors, drones, robotics, equipment, even life sciences for food, crop science, particularly new, controlled environment agriculture, new ways of growing things. There's a lot of startup development in those spaces. Greentown Labs is a place where a lot of them reside. Mass Robotics, there's a couple of companies that are doing that work. Boston itself, between Indigo and Inari, there's an Dexa. There's a number of these companies that have really taken root here, because the foundation of those products and the technology and the services is really software and hardware. And so I think you get people that, really want to solve big problems, and food is, one of the largest, if not the largest industry in the world. And how can they apply their skill set to what's going on? And I think, as we've talked about, Friedman students have just as much knowledge to, kind of move forward with those types of opportunities and collaborate. Those people, the Mass Challenge, Mass Robotics, Greentown Labs, they're in our backyard.
Yeah, we need to do more collaborations with them. Yeah, we did a collaboration with Mass Robotics last year, which was wonderful, and brought in the lead roboticist from Tyson Foods.
Oh,
we
awesome.
Talked about things that we're doing at Tyson's around automation and supply chain. That's wonderful.
Very cool.
All right, so closing thoughts of the advice you'd love to give to these students today and future students about Friedman. What are the things that, if you could go back in time, to that first year at Friedman, and now looking back, like, what should they really be thinking about and paying attention to, and then really paying attention to as they're transitioning out?
Yeah, gosh, it's such a good question. I think, in thinking about my younger self, it's definitely find out figure out what you're really passionate about. What gets you excited, because ultimately, if you go down the entrepreneurial path, you're going to need to pull from that. And you're going to need to know, very clearly where that passion lies for you. Entrepreneurship is really hard. The peaks and the valleys of things are going really awesome one day, and who knows how you're going to pay your bills the next day, are real. It's a, mental health, kind of obstacle course. And so be sure that you're really passionate about the place that you're going, if you do have entrepreneurial pursuits, and really want to work on them. Also, be in it for the long haul. These are not, I've been doing this for, 6 years, going on 7 years in May. I still feel like I run a startup, and I still feel like, every day is a new day. And, you do get these Jedi swords thrown at you, and you're like, what do I do with that? You don't necessarily always have a team around you to help consider it. And so building, those relationships and those trusted advisors and those mentors that you can go to as you encounter problems, I think really help, put challenges and opportunities in perspective for you. And so don't go it alone, be patient, and figure out, where your passion really is, and as it relates to it.
That's great advice. Lauren, Abda, always wonderful to see you. I love that we get to speak together at things. I get to see you all the time. Your collaboration is wonderful. Thanks for coming back today and sharing some time with us at Nourish Cafe. Everyone stick around for a Q&A after the video.